Between its establishment in 1587 and the return of its leader, John White, in 1590, the early English settlement known as the Lost Colony at Roanoke on Roanoke Island, North Carolina, vanished inexplicably. In 1584, Walter Raleigh began exploring the area, and White led a party of roughly 100 settlers after Native American conflicts prevented early attempts. The Spanish Armada delayed White's return to England for supplies. The colonists' fate is still unknown. It's possible that hostile Native Americans killed them, or that they were assimilated by the neighboring tribes. Native American. Native American refers to any member of the Western Hemisphere's Aboriginal peoples. The technology and material culture employed by pre-Columbian Americans included fire and the fire drill, the domesticated dog, several types of stone tools, bows and arrows, spear thrower harpoons, cordage, netting, basketry, and, in some locations, a large number of Native American tribes were hunters and gatherers, while others were farmers. Corn, beans, squash, potatoes, and other tubers, as well as several semi-domesticated plant species that contain nuts and seeds, were among the many animals and plants that American Indians domesticated. Communities ranging from little hamlets to major cities like Teotihuacan, which has between 125,000 and 200,000 inhabitants, and Cahokia, which has an estimated population of 10,000 to 20,000, were supported by these and other resources. Indigenous peoples lived all over the Western Hemisphere at the start of the 16th century CE, when Europeans were beginning to conquer the Americas. They were quickly wiped off by the consequences of enslavement, military conquest, and epidemic disease. However, in terms of bringing about political change and reclaiming their autonomy in areas like education, property ownership, religious freedom, the law, and the revival of traditional culture. In terms of culture, the indigenous peoples of the Americas are typically divided into two major categories: Arctic peoples and American Indians. American Indians are frequently divided into three regions based on where they live: North America, Middle America, Mexico, and South America. This includes the prehistories, histories, and contemporary advancements of the indigenous peoples and cultures of Canada and the United States. The sidebar provides definitions for some terms used about Native Americans. American Indian, Native American, and First Nation are examples of tribal nomenclature. Native American culture areas. Whether the subject is chemistry, paleontology, fine art, or human civilization, the parallels and discrepancies between the subjects aid in planning and guiding research projects and interpretations. Anthropology, which frequently organizes cross-cultural comparisons using a typology called the culture area approach, is primarily responsible for the comparative study of cultures. Delineated at the turn of the 20th century, the culture area has continued to shape conversations about peoples and cultures into the 21st century. The Northwest Coast culture area in North America between the 16th and 19th centuries was characterized by characteristics like woodworking, salmon fishing, large villages or towns, and hierarchical social organization. Because regions are occasionally separated or combined, the precise number of Native American culture areas has fluctuated. Among the most frequently used cultural regions are the Great Basin. Notably, some academics favor combining the Plateau and Great Basin into a single intermontane cultural area, or the Northeast and Southeast into a single Eastern Woodlands culture group. This includes parts on Native American prehistoric and post-Columbian cultures. American Indians are among the indigenous peoples of the Americas in general. The Arctic. This region lies near and above the Arctic Circle and includes the northernmost parts of present-day Alaska and Canada. The landscape is rather flat, and the environment is marked by unusually cold temperatures for most of the year. The region's extreme northerly location changes the diurnal cycle. On winter days, the sun may peep over the horizon for only an hour or two, while the proportion of night to day is inverted during the summer months. The Eskimo and Aleut are two indigenous groups of the North American Arctic, and the Eskimo-Aleut family includes their traditional languages. Many Alaskan groups prefer to be called Native Alaskans rather than Native Americans. Canada's Arctic peoples generally prefer the referent Inuit. The Arctic peoples of North America relied upon hunting and gathering. Large herds of caribou and other animals were drawn to the inland north. On the coasts, sea mammals and fish formed the bulk of the diet. Small mobile bands were the predominant form of social organization. Band membership was generally based on kinship and marriage. Dome-shaped houses were common. They were sometimes made of snow and other times of timber covered with earth. Arctic societies also valued fur coats, dog sledges, and rich storytelling, mythology, and folklore traditions. Distribution of American subarctic cultures. Excluding the maritime provinces, which are part of the Northeast culture area, the topography is relatively flat. The climate is cool, and the ecosystem is characterized by a swampy and coniferous boreal forest ecosystem. Small kin-based bands were the major form of social organization, while seasonal reunions of larger groups occurred at favored fishing spots. In addition to gathering plant staples like berries, roots, and sap, people typically lived in small, semi-subterranean homes, designed to endure harsh weather conditions during the winter, while summertime permitted greater mobility and the use of lean-tos or tents. Fur garments, toboggans, and snowshoes were other prevalent examples of material culture. The Northeast. This cultural area reaches from the present-day Canadian provinces of Quebec, Ontario, and the Maritimes, south to the Ohio River Valley and North Carolina. The topography is generally rolling, although the Appalachian Mountains include some relatively steep slopes. The climate is temperate, precipitation is moderate, and the predominant ecosystem is the deciduous forest. Prominent tribes include the Algonquin, Iroquois. The traditional languages of the Northeast are largely of the Iroquoian and Algonquian language families. Most Northeastern peoples engaged in agriculture, and for them, the village of a few dozen to a few hundred persons was the most important social and economic unit in daily life. Groups that had access to reliably plentiful wild foods such as wild rice generally preferred to live in dispersed hamlets of extended families. Several villages or hamlets formed a tribe, and groups of tribes sometimes organized into powerful confederacies. These alliances were often very complex political organizations and generally took their name from the most powerful member tribe. As with the Iroquois Confederacy, cultivated corn beans, squash, and weedy seed-bearing plants, such as chenopodium, formed the economic base for farming groups. All northeastern peoples took animals including deer. Houses were wickiups, or longhouses. Both house types were constructed of a sapling framework that was covered with rush matting or sheets of bark. Other common aspects of culture included dugouts made of the trunks of whole trees, birch bark canoes, clothing made of pelts, and deer skins. Conclusion. The fate of the lost colony at Roanoke, established in 1587, the settlement vanished by 1590, when John White returned from England, leaving behind only cryptic clues like the word Croatoan. While theories abound ranging from destruction by hostile Native Americans, this enigma serves as a poignant reminder of the challenges faced by early settlers and the complex relationships between colonizers and indigenous peoples. Enjoyed this content? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment to stay updated and share your thoughts.